Hi, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday night and the My Baby Expert Show. Hi, guys. I'm Shari Criso, and we are here for another amazing episode of My Baby Experts. Actually, episode number 120. I had to check my notes tonight to figure out which episode it was. So, yeah, amazing. 120. So, just going to give it a minute, and I'm going to pull up my screen here and okay, yeah, we are live. We're going to wait for everyone to jump on with us. There we are. Hi, everyone. Hi. Yeah, we have a great show tonight. It has been like a holiday here in the Criso house because it has been World Breastfeeding Week and now National Breastfeeding Month. So the party continues for the rest of the month as we continue our conversations and all of our information about breastfeeding. And it's been so amazing because I've been posting everyone's breastfeeding story on my Facebook page, and I'm just overwhelmed reading your amazing journeys. For all of you, submitting your pictures, submitting your stories, and being so generous and sharing your, struggles, your joy, all of it, and your perseverance. I mean, I'm just brought to tears with reading so many of them. So thank you for submitting, everybody who has. Hi, guys. Yeah, everybody's jumping in. Okay, great. Well, tonight we have an amazing show, as always, and keeping up with the conversation, we are going to be talking about skin to skin. And I was actually kind of amazed when I thought back to the last 120 episodes and thought that was a topic that we've never covered in a whole show. So, of course, we've covered it in different topics, it's brought into the conversation, but not a whole show dedicated to this incredibly important concept of skin-to-skin contact, which I know so many of you had a lot of questions in the past and we've talked about in other ways. So I actually found an amazing guest for all of you, and I can't wait to introduce her. She's waiting in the wings here, and we're going to bring her on in just a minute to discuss this. So, and also tonight, if you guys want to post any questions here, you have any comments you want to share, go ahead and share it right into the chat room, and hopefully I'll try to keep up with the conversation and read your comments as well and answer. Yes, Deneen, number 120. Okay, so hashtag 120. Let's see everybody go ahead and do that. We have a couple of things that we always do here on My Baby Experts, and that is we always honor the episode, and then we always honor each other so that, someone shares or we answer a question or you like what you heard. I want to see lots of hearts going across that screen, especially for my guests too, okay, to have all those hearts going across. Love seeing all of that. 120, yay, 120. Okay, and last question, where's everybody from? We have new people. I am just blown away. I mean, like literally our page is growing so fast and it's just awesome. The community is growing quickly. It is worldwide. We have literally mamas from all over the world joining and commenting and sharing their stories and talking about the differences and being in different parts of the world. And so we always have someone new. So I want to hear from you. If you are new, I want you to go ahead and tell us you're new. Here's everybody talking about where they're from. Tell me that you're new so that we can welcome you properly, okay? Because we always love new people. So there we are. Oh my goodness. Alabama, Colorado, Pittsburgh, Florida, everywhere. Yay. Yay. Congratulations, Emma. Okay. Awesome. So let me go ahead and bring on our guest right now. You're new. All right, here's the new people. And you're in Kuwait. Okay. See, we have people all over, and Australia. Excellent. Oh my God, I love it. Okay, so let me go ahead and bring out my guest. This is Lisa Paladino I'm about to introduce, and let me just use my technology here to bring her on. Hold on one second. And there is Lisa, should be joining us right now. There she is. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Shari. How are you?
Good, good. I'm so happy to have you with us tonight.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. This is great.
Hi. They're all in the chat room. Everybody's excited. We have people from all over the country, literally, and all over the world.
Right. I saw 4 a.m. in Kuwait. That's pretty impressive.
I know, it's amazing. We just have mothers joining the community every single day from every corner of the globe. And what I love about that is just how we can be in different countries, we can be on different continents, obviously different cultures, and yet the one thing that brings us all together and we share so in common is motherhood, and fatherhood too. But this everything that we do, from breastfeeding to skin to how we care for our babies, it really doesn't change. It doesn't matter where you are.
Doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what language you speak. Doesn't matter what kind of place you live in. That brings us right into our topic, right? I mean, skin to skin is so universal.
Completely. It's part of being human.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's just part of being human, and actually part of being a mammal, right? So.
Right. Total instinctual. If we didn't know so much about things, we would do it without even thinking about it, right?
Totally. Before we even get into the topic, I met Lisa a couple months ago at Dr. Scott Siegel's symposium in New York City on tongue and lip ties. And when she was one of the speakers. And when she got up to speak, I saw her credentials and I said, "Oh, goody, yes," because I don't usually see people with the same exact,
right.
background and credentials. And then after I heard you speak, I said, I ran up to you and I said, "You got to do the show with me." So
right.
I'm really happy to have you here tonight.
Oh, I'm happy too. And I remember when you said, "I'm a midwife and an IBCLC too," and we hugged. We're like, yes.
Yes.
Club that we belong to.
It's a small club, but it's important, and it's like, I get you and you get me, and it's awesome.
And as we were talking about, it's kind of sad that as midwives, we don't really learn about breastfeeding, and a lot of women assume that midwives do know about breastfeeding. And really there isn't so much of that taught in, the mainstream midwifery programs, which is sad.
It's surprising for a lot of people that I tell, because they think, of course, with nursing school, I have a lot of nurses who follow, and they'll all say, "Yeah, we didn't learn breastfeeding in nursing school." But then I'll say, even in midwifery school, I was delivering babies, I was writing prescriptions for mastitis, and yet I struggled myself with breastfeeding from lack of knowledge.
Right. Yeah. And myself too. I didn't have the help that I needed when I had my babies. And that's partly why I'm in the profession I'm in, because I felt like women deserve to have support, and somebody had to be here to have that knowledge for them. So that was my inspiration was my failure with my own kids, or I don't want to say failure, lack of doing the ideal job that I help women do now, lack of getting to my goals. And, my inspiration is helping moms meet their own personal goals, no matter what they are. Moms have different goals. There's no right or wrong. And I feel like it's my honor and privilege to help women meet those goals. Nothing should get in that way.
I couldn't agree with you anymore. And, I think that has a lot to do with also our midwifery backgrounds as well. It really creates that base for that philosophy. And I love hearing that, because I agree with that too. Can we can you tell us a little bit, because I thought it was so interesting when we spoke about how you got involved with specifically skin to skin and the work that you've done with it, which is brought us to the topic tonight.
Right. So I was a nurse, an RN, and I worked in labor and delivery for many years. And I always knew I wanted to be a midwife, but I wasn't ready yet to go back to school. So I finally had the right time. I started going back to school, working on my bachelor's degree. And my senior project for my bachelor's degree, we had to do a research project. And at the same time, the New York City Breastfeeding Initiative was happening. I'm in New York City. I'm in Staten Island, the borough of New York City. So a few of us in labor and delivery, very good friend of mine, Joan Greenberg, who I think is listening today, and I decided to pick the topic of skin to skin. So we started trying to get the project together, and there was no money for it. My supervisor was like, "You can do this, but I don't know what's going to happen." So we had to get IRB approval for our little research project on skin to skin, and we got laughed out of the boardroom, because this was 2007. So things were a little bit different in breastfeeding culture back then, especially where I worked. So I sort of got laughed out of the boardroom full of men. And but then Mayor Bloomberg came out with this breastfeeding initiative for the city, and where we live, we don't have a city hospital, so we weren't going to be getting the funding. So we lobbied our local politicians, but we forgot to tell the hospital administrators. So one day I got a phone call, Lisa, have you been talking to someone about the breastfeeding initiative? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, well, guess what? We got a grant. And that created my job. It started the breastfeeding initiative. So I wasn't even an IBCLC yet. I was a CLC. I was an RN, just with a lot of passion for breastfeeding. So I was studying and studying and studying. In the meantime, I graduated as a midwife. I became the breastfeeding initiative coordinator. I worked with the Department of Health for 8 years on the breastfeeding baby-friendly initiative. And in the meantime, I studied and worked with, did preceptor work, whatever, and got my IBCLC just about a little bit while after I got my midwifery degree.
Awesome.
So, it all came together. And for 8 years, I delivered babies at the hospital. I worked for the hospital, and I did the initiative. And then 2 years ago, I decided that it just wasn't working out anymore, and I wasn't able to serve as many women as I felt I could as working for the hospiple. So I started a private practice. So now that's what I do. It's dedicated to lactation.
Awesome.
So people come to me for lactation support before, during, and after. And been wonderful. So happy.
That's so great. So great. Thank you for going through that so that everybody can understand that it's been, you've been involved in this particular topic as well as everything around it for many, many years. And you've actually made a lot of changes and brought things to the forefront in this particular aspect of
it was
mother baby care. For sure. Okay, so let's go ahead and, Dr. Siegel's here. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Scott.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start the conversation here because we have a lot to cover. And I want to talk about skin to skin in general. Obviously it starts at birth. So let's talk a little bit about, what is that initial contact? What does it all mean?
Right. So as midwives, Shari, you and I share the idea that birth should be as undisturbed as possible in the ideal situation, right? So when the baby is born, the baby should come to mom. Biologically, as mammals, any mammal grabs its young and brings it up to the chest, and not to the breast, just up to the chest, to keep it warm. So as humans, we have that same instinct, and it's sometimes thwarted because of everything that gets in the way of it. But the instinct is there. So skin to skin is the biologic imperative that happens after birth. That baby has been in a dark, warm place, and the world can be kind of cold and bright and loud. So I like to tell my clients that skin to skin is, the baby, you can't see on me here, but the baby was in the belly and now it's here, still being able to hear the heartbeat of the mom, like the baby did in the womb, just a little bit up further, hear the heartbeat, hear the voice through the mom's body similarly. And, the benefits are innumerable. And it's almost like it's not even a benefit. It's harmful if you disturb that. Right?
Yeah,
so the baby
that's a really good point to make. It's not just a bonus. It's necessary. It's necessary.
Right. So if you take the baby away, the baby cries and the blood sugar goes down and the temperature goes down. But if you keep the baby with mom, all of that stabilizes. And what's kind of magical about that is even if mom isn't so warm, the baby will be warm enough. It's really kind of special the way that works.
Yeah.
So skin to skin is just holding the baby on the chest after birth. Ideally, if you're at the delivery setting, you would take away the any wet clothes, any wet gown, any wet blanket, and dry the mom, put the baby on the chest. Of course, this might be a good time to say some people get a little squeamish about the dirty baby. But babies aren't really that dirty. And whoever helps with whoever's facilitating the delivery, the doctor or the midwife, usually wipes the baby's excess, whatever fluids off, dries the baby, puts the baby on the chest. And then a warm blanket is placed on mom and baby, and they can just hang out there while everything is finishing up with the birth.
Yeah. And so, lots of times I remember as I was doing births that moms, I would hand as soon as the baby would deliver, I would hand the mom the baby, and the mom would immediately try to put the baby on their breast. And this is like thinking that it needs to happen immediately. And I would always say, you have time, first to breathe, then they need to eat. First they need to transition, and then they can start to nurse. And actually, if left alone, they will latch, but it's not going to be immediately.
Right. It takes most babies up to an hour. That's where that hour, undisturbed hour, that Baby Friendly prescribes comes from, because most babies will latch within an hour. And what I like to explain is that baby isn't starving for food. That baby's been getting nourishment through the placenta for the whole time, right until right before birth. So there's certainly no emergency to feed the baby. But it is something that people get nervous about, and the sitting up and trying to put the baby on the breast can actually interfere with that natural process. So if you just hold the baby and enjoy the baby there, I say, that's a good time to take some deep breaths and enjoy and, smell the baby. And moms do, moms, they'll take deep breaths and, my baby, and enjoy each other and talk to each other and, maybe take some pictures, and dad's there or the partner is there with them. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And if left undisturbed, the baby will go through 9 stages of exploration to get to the breast. And sometimes even as somebody who understands and has seen this hundreds of times, sometimes you want to help, because the babies sometimes look like they need some help. But if we leave them alone, the studies show that babies that self-latch usually breastfeed for longer periods of time.
Isn't that so interesting? And I know exactly what you're talking about, that needing to keep that patience and to trust. The same as like when you're in labor, like having that patience and trusting that the body's a really miraculous thing, and that babies and mothers fit perfectly together, and that those instincts are going to kick in. And what you were saying, those 9 stages and all the different steps that the baby goes through, when they're left undisturbed, when they're, close to the mother, when they're, tummy down. We talked about this with Michelle Manuel a couple weeks ago.
Right.
That it does kick in all those reflexes to crawl, crawl
and they
to the breast and to self-latch.
Right. I guess that's the first tummy time, right?
It's exactly, that's what we were talking about, the very first tummy time. And I have a couple of people in the chat room right now that are saying that they feel sad because they had a C-section and they weren't able to do skin to skin immediately. And we're going to talk about that, because we were talking earlier before the show, Lisa and I, that skin to skin is not like something that you check off your list, or it's not like an event that happens. It's not like an event you do immediately and then that's it. I did my skin to skin. It's something that you're going to do for weeks and months following.
Right. And what I like to teach about is that, and when I see women prenatally, I sort of set them up for this, that skin to skin is what's going to happen the first time you have the opportunity for it. So if you miss, even in a vaginal birth, a baby may have reason to be taken away. And if anything happens that you can't do it right there in the birthing room, the first time that you're together, you should do skin to skin. And I've even reunited, as I say, mom and baby in my office for the first time, because nobody's ever suggested to them that it would be okay. And babies keep that rooting instinct for up to 3 months. So a baby, undressed, put on the chest, will go to the breast. And it's really, it's very, I'm going to get emotional. It's a really warm and fuzzy feeling that you get to watch this and to be able to see how much the baby remembers of what they need to do if mom just gets out of the way and lets it happen. And mom's crying, baby's rooting, I'm crying, it happens all the time, but it's all good. But so in a C-section, sometimes it's recovery room. Sometimes it's a couple of hours later when mom's feeling up to it. And that's okay. That's fine. Nothing, it's not ideal to mom to have those interventions, but if they have to be, they have to be. And it doesn't take away the benefits of skin to skin. And some of the benefits, if you don't mind me going on, is,
absolutely.
Is temperature control for baby, the stability for baby. I don't know if you've ever heard this term. We used to talk about leaving the baby in the breastaurant. Have you ever heard that?
No, I haven't.
So if the baby is in the nursery or in a crib across the room, it's harder for that baby to be able to eat when it's time. So if you leave the baby on the chest, it's like in the breastaurant, so it can eat whenever it wants.
Nice.
Restaurant, the salad bar is open all night. You can just walk over. So the temperature and the sugar control are really important because those are things that take the baby out of being a regular newborn and make, the hospital staff think about taking the baby away if the temperature is low or the sugar is low. And that's not even, that skin to skin without even nursing keeps that stable. So they don't even need just any food.
Yep.
Have that stability. So that's a really great thing. The other thing is, and we were talking about this before we came on, the microbiome. Everybody's learning about the microbiome and how important it is to get the good bacteria from mom to the baby. And part of that's through the vaginal canal, and part of it is through being on mom's skin. And not letting too many hands handle the baby before that baby gets the inoculation of the mother's bacteria, the good bacteria.
You want the baby colonized with your bacteria, not the nurses in the nursery, not the isolates, not everything that they can be around. You want them colonized with you. And speaking of the microbiome, next week, I think Monday night, we're doing an entire show on the microbiome, which I'm so excited to do. I have Toni Harmon. She's she created the film Microbirth. And she's going to be my guest, and we're going to talk all about microbiome on Monday night. So, and it's just a perfect transition from talking about skin to skin and then into colonization and all that, because they all go hand in hand, and breastfeeding.
Right. Yeah. So I don't want any moms who haven't had this experience to feel bad, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't let people know that that's the idea. The ideal is for the baby to be with mom, and our interventions in birth do affect breastfeeding for sure, and that's something that people can understand or should understand. And even something like the epidural, I don't tell people never to get an epidural, but to understand that sometimes epidural will affect how fast the baby goes through those 9 stages. So a baby who isn't latching in the delivery room, if it's had an epidural, you almost want to cut that kid a little slack and say, well, it's because he's a little confused. He'll come around.
Right.
Because it takes a little longer. And to understand why that might not be happening as fast.
And that's good. Speaking of back of the 9 steps, I do have a little video that I found it's a quick video just showing some of the steps. You'll be able to see those. And she's actually talking through the video of the breast crawl. So this is a little video I'm going to play for you guys, showing a baby right after birth on mom and going through some of these stages. So just hold on 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and play that video right now. 1 second. I got to change the screen. Give me a second. All right, there we go. And videos, and there we go.
The baby should be kept skin to skin on his mother's chest for at least 1 hour after birth. For the first 30 minutes, the baby will be alert and look around. He will touch, feel, and smell his surroundings. The baby will then begin to kick and move his feet, move his shoulders, hands, and body. This stimulation prompts the uterus to contract and expel the placenta. The baby will start smacking his lips, bringing his fingers to his mouth. He will then start salivating. The newborn's ability to smell is well developed at birth. The smell of the amniotic fluid on his hands will help him to locate his mother's nipples, which have a similar smell. Using his sense of smell, the baby will move towards the nipple, usually by bobbing his head, pushing his legs, and moving his shoulders and arms to position his mouth on his mother's nipple. Even with his limited vision, the baby can see the areola and will move towards it. When the baby reaches the nipple, he will raise his head and with a wide open mouth attach to the nipple and start to suck. This first feed will generally last between 10 to 15 minutes. It is sufficient for the baby to feed from one breast. Keep the baby on his mother's chest for at least 1 hour, even if he has finished feeding. Delay all other normal newborn care until the baby has had skin-to-skin contact for at least 1 hour. Delay bathing the baby for at least 6 hours after the delivery or until the next day. Maintain the baby's warmth with a blanket and hat. Do not swaddle the baby or wrap him too tightly, as tight swaddling can make the baby colder.
Awesome. Awesome. Let's see. Are we back? Can you hear us?
We're back, right?
Yes, we're back. We're back. Yeah, that was great. It kind of went through quickly, but that's a process that would take a little bit of time. That went faster than you would normally expect to see that.
Yes, absolutely. But that was a great way to show what we're discussing, because unless you've seen it, it's hard to imagine exactly what it looks like.
Right.
And you know what? Something that was brought up that we hadn't talked about before was the delaying of the bath and all the other interventions that happen when a baby is born. Most hospitals will comply with this, but if not, you should ask your provider and your hospital before birth if they are doing skin to skin, and if that means leaving the baby undisturbed for that hour, or if there's any reason that the baby would be taken away. You can discuss what that would be, and if it could be, just put off for that time. And most hospitals, I think, even hospitals who aren't baby friendly are getting on the bandwagon with skin to skin.
They're starting to understand a lot more than they used to. And anything that really needs to be done can be done right there on mom's chest. It's APGAR scoring or listening to the heart rate, or all those things can be done right there by the nurses, while the baby's right there on your chest.
Right. And even some babies that may be a little bit sluggish at birth, if you have a practitioner who understands how great skin to skin is for mom and baby, will let the baby stay there, with closer observation. And usually being skin to skin will get that baby, get the baby started, for lack of a better word, in a smoother transition, from that intrauterine life to the external world, smoother and easier than the baby that's taken away.
Right.
So it's even some hospitals are starting to do resuscitations of babies that have problems on the chest, because they're aware of that. So instead of bringing the baby into an isolette, they actually bring the equipment over and do everything with baby skin to skin. But that's totally new. That's really exciting.
That's really new, I'm sure. But I love how as time progresses, we get smarter, and what we're really getting is more in tune with what our bodies naturally have been programmed to do.
Right.
And that's, and I also wanted to say that, skin to skin can also be done with dad as well. So, if for whatever reason, if mom's having a medical issue, or, if there's any reason that mom cannot do skin to skin, and even ongoing, we'll talk about that in a minute, but this can be done with dad as well.
Absolutely. Sometimes that mom's just not up to it, or maybe, in the case of the C-section, mom's in the OR a little bit longer, and dad doesn't know what to do. And, Yeah, I remember quite a few times putting dad together with the baby in a room privately and letting the dad do skin to skin. Even had a baby latch on once to dad. He thought that was cool. He rang the bell and he said, "Is this okay?" You know, and the baby was latched on. I'm like, as long as you're okay with it, no harm done. And the baby, so the same benefits though in the case of the baby being kept warm.
Yes.
It's not the same as the mom, but the baby's kept warm. The baby was soothed. The baby had the sucking needs met, you know, and no crying because the baby felt secure. And that's what you want to prevent. You want to prevent the crying because the crying burns the fat. The fat, when the brown fat burns, the blood sugar drops, and that starts a whole cascade of things. Respirations increase, and babies get a little unstable. So keeping the baby stable with dad is just as important. And what a wonderful bonding experience that is for dad.
Totally, totally. I mean, if you really think about everything when it comes to birth, when it comes to breastfeeding, and everything in between as far as parenting, everything was developed and designed, and we evolved in ways that our bodies were going to support our life, support our children's, our baby's life. And, you know, before we had NICUs and isolates and, you know, all these other equipment, all we had was ourselves to, you know, to keep a baby warm, and so these things are super important to keep in mind, because I think and this is what happened for so many years, is we got away from thinking that natural was better. You know, we forgot all these amazing benefits of just allowing our baby's instincts to kick in, and our own too. And so many moms that I talk to, they're like, I don't have any instincts. I don't know what I'm doing. And you know, the truth is that you really do. You know, it's that voice that's talking to you to say, I feel like I should do this, or I feel, you know, like that feeling that you have, that's your instinct kicking in. It's not a thought. It's like a feeling and an urge. And you want to go with that.
I totally agree, Shari. And you know, I do see many moms that are their instincts are a little thwarted because we're in the information age, and it's more about what you can know and learn and read and study, and trying to intellectualize everything, and sometimes that gets in the way of the instinct. I'll tell you a little bit of story that we were sharing before we went on about my own experience with my daughter, who's my second child, born in 1994, when I didn't know anything about breastfeeding back then. Yeah. And she was small, and I actually was working as a nurse, and I worked with the nurses who were taking care of me, but she was a little cold. So they insisted on taking her to the nursery, and they wouldn't let me breastfeed her. And I was very upset, and I knew nothing about skin to skin, but I just kept saying to them, what if I just hold her close to me? You know, I knew that on a level I wanted to be holding my baby, and that wasn't anything I had learned yet. I said, let me just hold her close. And they told me no. And it was so upsetting. And that's one of the things that got me, you know, one of my motivations for what I do now is to honor that instinct and that need to hold a baby skin to skin, motivated me to become a lactation consultant. And helping other moms to get what I was denied. You know, I finally was able to get her from, you know, they were my friends even. So it's even those of us who have, you know, friends in the hospital sometimes were denied the good experiences that we should have been allowed to have. But as soon as I got her, that's what I did. I undressed her, I undressed myself, and I held her skin to skin, and we warmed up together, and, you know, it was wonderful.
I'll tell you what I did with my second baby. And I too, I was a midwife when I had both of my kids. I was already in the hospital practicing in my practice. And that was an unusual situation as well, you know, being with all the people you work with. And so that was, you know, with my first. And I did a lot of things that I probably, you know, again, the fear, the idea that other people knew better than I did, even though I was a midwife, you know, you still kind of are questioning yourself. And with my second, I just remember we delivered, I wouldn't let them take her, to the point of, like, even after I had the baby and we were moving from the labor room to the postpartum unit, I got up and carried her to the postpartum unit. It was hours, like maybe 5-6 hours later, that I called the nursery and just said, hey, you guys want to come down and check her? And they said, you delivered? I said, yeah, about 6 hours ago. But it was the best way for me to delay everything, to just, I needed that time with her. I just needed that time to just bond with her. And, I did my own little assessment bedside on my chest.
See, that was great that you knew all that stuff before you had your kids. See, I had my kids before I was a midwife, before I was a lactation consultant. But I knew that I didn't know something. There was this lack there. And I think that some people, a lot of people start coming to healthier or learning about healthier things through breastfeeding. So that's part of why I love what I do, because sometimes you don't think about these things until you're going through that. And that opens up a whole new world for you. And, if you don't mind, I just saw a question that came up about delayed cord clamping, which really ties into
I was just going to comment on it. So go ahead. Go for it.
Yeah. So I see Tonya says that delayed cord clamping is very important and goes right along with skin to skin. It will not interfere at all. I mean, every once in a while there's a cord that's really, really short, but that's unusual.
Right.
The cord usually has plenty of room for the baby to come up to your chest. And delayed cord clamping is another baby of mine. Another thing that I, fought to get established where I worked, because, that baby deserves that blood supply. A third of the baby's blood supply is in that placenta when it's born.
Yes.
I'm sure you remember, right, seeing the placenta at birth and how chubby the cord is. And if you let it stop pulsing, it becomes a skinny little thing, because the blood goes back to the baby. And that helps in that transition along with the skin to skin. Going back to what we were talking about before about not interfering with natural processes. If we didn't have hospitals, we didn't have NICUs, we didn't have doctors and midwives, we'd be just letting that happen by itself, as all mammals do.
Absolutely. And, one of the things I used to do with my own patients, because of course, as a midwife delivering in a hospital, there's always nurses around who want to kind of do their thing. And it's, as the midwife, you're kind of managing the room to keep it from becoming too medical, especially in an uncomplicated birth. And I remember I used to just not cut the cord. And when you don't cut the cord, they can't take the baby.
Exactly.
It was like keeping it attached. They were just forced. Yeah. They were just forced to keep the baby where the baby, I didn't even have to say anything.
Yeah. And even before, when I was working as a nurse, if the doctor would take up the scissor, I'd be like, no. Why not? No, let it be. Okay, she wants to delay it. And the woman would look at me and, okay, thank you, Absolutely. But it's the routine, and they want to follow their routines. I mean, not to anybody's fault. It's just the way it is. And, they're so busy. There's so much to do. And they want to get the things done that they have to do. But if, it's worth it to speak up about it, and get what you feel like you deserve and what your baby needs.
Totally. There's another point that I had seen somebody bring up, and we had talked about as well, was the idea of the vernix and not wiping off the vernix. And how you earlier said babies are not dirty. Right. They are coated, but they're not dirty.
Right. Yeah, that vernix is so special. First of all, it's protective. I think we're still learning about what role that plays in the microbiome. Yep. But we do know that there's a certain odor to a newborn that attracts the mother. And and even the odor of the mom attracts the baby, that you don't want to be totally clean before, cleaned off, because the sweat glands and all that make secretions that help attract the baby to where it's got to be. And the vernix not only protects the skin, but it will protect that baby from the other, bacteria that's in coming in contact with it that we don't want it. Like, as you said before, you don't want the nurse's bacteria or the isolete's bacteria on that baby. You want just the baby's microbiome and your own to be getting to the baby. So that's the premise behind delaying the bath. There's no reason to wash that off, at least, I believe that the baby friendly and the hospitals are going for 12 to 24 hours, but you can even go longer than that. There's no reason to wash the baby.
I would say that's sort of a minimum, and then you can even go longer, and it definitely, just kind of rub the vernix into the baby's skin and allow it to protect and continue to moisturize the baby's skin. And that's what it's been doing all along, is protecting, and we'll continue to do that. Let's talk a little bit about premature babies and kangaroo care and how important that is, and can this be done if the baby's in the NICU, and what is the whole idea there?
Of course. And there's been so much research done on the benefits to kangaroo care for the baby. So most, in the very, very beginning, the baby's got to be stabilized, but usually once mom is okay and she goes into the NICU to see baby, even if the baby's on tubes and wires and IVs and breathing machines, there's usually a way that you can get mom to hold the baby. And hold the baby skin to skin is, again, all those benefits that stabilize the full-term baby, they're going to stabilize that preemie baby, and even more so. And even some, progressive nurseries will do feedings, even if it's a tube feeding, with the baby on mom's chest, so the baby gets that experience. And, it's harder in the NICU. The NICUs are harder to come around to that, at least in my area. But there are some really progressive NICUs that have beds for moms, to lay with the baby. Other countries, Australia is wonderful on that topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So absolutely. But again, not for anybody who has a baby in NICU to feel badly about the loss of experience, but just to, ask for that experience, let your feelings be known just in case it's not regular practice. Yeah. And because the benefits for baby and mom, because now that new mom is probably trying to make breast milk for that baby, and it's really hard to produce for that hypothetical situation. So if mom has baby skin to skin, even for a little while, that'll help her milk supply come up too.
Totally. One of the things that, when I've had babies that were struggling to latch, I don't practice as a midwife anymore. Now I'm an IBCLC. And so I'm getting moms after they've given birth, after they've had their experience. I wasn't there from the first day. And so I wasn't able to support the birth experience, but I'll get calls from moms in the hospital where their baby's not latching, and they're being told, the baby's going to be supplemented if we don't get the baby to latch. And my first answer is always, strip that baby down and take off your top and skin to skin. And it's remarkable, the impact that has, that, just putting the baby to skin to skin, even if it's hours or a day or two after the birth, babies that are having any kind of difficulty latching. Would you agree, Lisa? It's like my number one answer is first skin to skin. And you'll usually see, this is the experience I've had, is you'll see that you put the baby skin to skin, and even a baby that has been struggling or not latching will do all those stages and go through those stages of rooting and then getting to the breast and self-latch. And will lift their heads up and will start to show signs of wanting to go onto the breast. The worst thing you could do for a baby that is struggling to breastfeed in those first days is to swaddle that baby and keep the baby wrapped up, which is how it's like the typical picture of what you see is a baby swaddled all up with a hat on, and everyone else is holding the baby. And the baby will just kind of shut down. The baby doesn't, all those natural instincts to latch will not be stimulated.
Right. It's true. And also, I want to get back to the swaddling, but that instinct lasts for up to 12 weeks. So it doesn't matter when it happens. And I call it the reset, like that baby's a little bit confused neurologically maybe, which is, I don't know if that's really the technical word, but it can't really focus on what they have to do. And when you put them skin to skin, it's sort of a reset and lets it go again. As far as swaddling goes, oh my goodness, that's like one of my pet peeves, because that poor baby's been able to use its hands, swaddling and mittens. the other thing I don't like, because the baby uses its hands to self-soothe all the time in the womb, and now we're telling the baby that he or she can't. So yes, I unswaddle the baby, because then you're not going to get the feeding cues. The baby's just going to settle down and go back to sleep.
Yep.
So that's very important. And one funny thing is, when I was working on the busy hospital unit, and I was the only lactation consultant, and I would get calls, mom in 4A, mom in 4B. I would go up and down the line, and what I would do is put all the moms and babies skin to skin, and then go to the nurse's station and say, if you have any more problems, call me. And most of the time, all those babies just latched. I would stay with the one that had more difficulty, but just let them self-latch. I said, no, just leave the baby there and see what happens. Yeah. And then I'd go back an hour later and everybody was fine, Yeah. So in most cases with well mom and baby, that's all it takes. And sometimes that's all it takes, even a couple of weeks later, to that. And even babies that have difficulty, we brought up that we met at the conference about tongue tie. So even the day of the tongue tie revision, what I suggest for moms and babies is to take a bath and do skin to skin together, because that brings back to that place of being in the water, and the skin to skin brings out the instincts again, and most babies will relax and latch in the bath with mom.
Awesome. Such great advice.
Anytime. Even, you're home a couple of weeks and baby's upset about something, you can't figure out how to calm him or her. Skin to skin works every time. Yeah.
There's some great, really soft wraps that you can wear the baby and not have anything on the baby except for a diaper. So, and literally it will cover you like a shirt, where you put the wrap on, the baby's just literally there all the time, put a little sweatshirt over it, and you're kind of, you can just, that way you're more hands-free. I always like that too, because, you're tired, you're sitting in a chair or whatever, you want to be able to make sure the baby's not going to fall, or, that you've got a good grip, and you can use your hands to have a drink for yourself or whatever you need to do. So baby wearing really goes hand in hand with this, especially in those early weeks when you can do it in a skin to skin way.
Absolutely. And again, there's such a tie-in between baby wearing skin to skin, the microbiome, tummy time, which I know you just had an interview about tummy time, because skin to skin is really the first tummy time. That's baby's in that position on mom or on dad, and that's a great position to be in, even when you're going home from the hospital. Those first weeks, that baby should be skin to skin with mom most of the time, because that's the place where they belong.
I want to just bring up a point, because one, for any moms that are exclusively pumping, or for any moms that are bottle feeding in any way, so whether it's formula or pumped milk, I think it's one of those things that we forget. It's not just about the milk. Breastfeeding
not at all.
Not just about the milk. It's so much more than the milk. It's so much more in the sense of when you're breastfeeding, you can't help but do skin to skin, right? You're bringing your baby to your bare skin. The colonization is going to be there. All the benefits of your body, your skin touching the baby's skin. When you're bottle feeding, it's possible to never be in that skin to skin contact unless you're aware and making a conscious effort to do that. And other people will feed the baby. And I always encourage, whatever the situation is, whether it's because it didn't work or because you chose to, don't forget to don't leave out this other part, which is strip down, put your baby skin to skin, wear your baby skin to skin, and if you can, feed the baby while the baby's there at your chest, the same way as you would with breastfeeding. And don't forget that important step, because it still has all the same important benefits.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so much more than the milk. I mean, feeding for the baby is so much more than the milk. That's why, I mean, I'm sure you talk about paste feeding for the baby as well.
Yep.
We don't want it just about getting that volume into the baby. It's the experience of interaction and of taking a while to suck on the nipple, whether it be your nipple or an artificial nipple. It's just as important to give the baby the experience of feeding. And that closeness that you get from skin to skin does not have to be just for breastfeeding at all. That's why it works for dad. It could work for grandma. I've seen some older siblings do skin to skin with babies.
Yeah.
It gives you, we didn't talk about the benefits for mom of skin to skin. So much to talk about. So mom, skin to skin releases the hormone oxytocin, which oxytocin is the love or the bonding hormone, but it also contracts the uterus. So some of our moms will remember those first kind of crampy feelings that happen when you breastfeed in the beginning, because the uterus is actually clamping down, which is supposed to do to shrink back to its natural size, its normal size, and prevent hemorrhage and bleeding. So that's an interesting thing to know, is that we see a lot of like emergency vaginal births on TV shows and things like that. And if babies put skin to skin and put on the nipple, that will prevent complications, out of the hospital if an emergency birth happens, because, that's how the body works. It works without us knowing what to do. The natural instincts prevent bleeding from mom. So it also stabilizes her blood pressure and her heart rate when she's got baby skin to skin. And it feels amazing. If you see a mom with the baby skin to skin, she's going to take a deep breath, smell her baby, relax. You see the shoulders drop, and that should be something that you enjoy with your baby, no matter how you're feeding the baby, because it's so good for the baby and it's so good for you, because it's what's meant to be,
Right. I honestly feel like so many moms who pump or exclusively pump or bottle feed, that's one of the parts that they're not taught enough, that there's this amazing part of it that can still be there, whether the baby's eating directly from the breast or just at the breast.
Right.
You can still have those feelings. So I just feel like it's a really important point to make. I also we have some prizes for everybody tonight, and I want to be able to mention that tonight's all about education. And, Lisa and I have spent our lives caring for moms and babies and supporting breastfeeding and birth. And so we just felt like tonight's prizes would focus around giving you that knowledge and education like we did tonight, but through some of the things that we have, which Lisa has a really great book that's available. The name of the book, what's the name of the book?
It Shouldn't Hurt to Nurse Your Baby, Breastfeeding Solutions.
Joe pinned it up here for everybody.
Okay.
Awesome. It Shouldn't Hurt to Nurse Your Baby.
Breastfeeding Solutions for the 6 most common causes of painful nipples. Awesome. And it's a really, Shari, it's a short book. It's to the point. I wrote it because, I sort of said this 12 times a day. It shouldn't hurt. It shouldn't hurt. It shouldn't hurt. And there was even a Huffington Post blog saying it's okay. We should be talking about that. It hurts. And that's when I decided that's what the title of my book was going to be, because why should it hurt? It's a natural bodily process. Does it hurt sometimes? Yes. But there's things that can be done about it. In most cases, there's things that can be done to make it better. And a lot of women suffer in silence. A lot of women expect it to hurt.
Exactly.
And that makes me sad, because it doesn't have to hurt.
Right. So we're going to be giving away copies of Lisa's book to winners here in the chat. And I'm also going to be giving away a choice of my programs. I have 3 classes. 2 are one is a breastfeeding class, simply breastfeeding. I have a pumping class for returning to work, breast pumps and briefcases. And then I also have a class on cloth diapering. If anybody's interested, it's an awesome, awesome class on cloth diapering for the very beginner and even if you've been doing it, it's a great class. And so they're all online class registrations tonight. And Lisa, how many books are we giving away?
I have 3 books.
3 books, perfect. Okay, so to win one of the prizes tonight, what you need to do is just like or love this post, and then comment here in the stream. Let me know why you'd like to win either one of the classes or Lisa's book, and we'll be picking some winners. And everybody, somebody said, me for the book. I already took Shari's classes.
That's great.
Okay, Chelsea, no problem. Oh, and then she said, they're awesome. Okay, so there you go. That's great. I love that.
Classes. No.
I love that. Oh my goodness. No. We just, I mean, I love this conversation, and I'm just so happy that we had a chance to really explore it in depth tonight, and really set it up for Monday's conversation as well, so we can just continue on with so many important aspects that parents just don't always know to what it's such a simple thing, right? Like everything we just talked about is just really so simple. You don't need to buy anything. You don't need to have anything. You don't need to know anything, really. You just need to do it.
Right.
You just need to do it. Your body will know exactly what to provide for the baby, and the baby will know how to respond to it. And so I love being able to educate about these particular topics.
Oh, me too, Shari. It's been wonderful to have this conversation. I feel like we could talk for like 4 more hours about it.
I'm sure we could. The first time Lisa and I talked, it was a couple of hours.
Yeah. We have so much in common. It's great.
So much in common. We just couldn't stop, as you can probably imagine. Yeah. So anybody who wants to win, go ahead and comment here and just like or love the post, and make sure that you're registering. You know, I have a new platform. It's all getting ready to launch. Parts of it have already launched, where you guys have been getting email reminders in the day or the night before the show. Make sure that you're on that list. I think Joe can go ahead and put up the link so that you're registered for our live streams, and that way you'll get an email reminder as well. And you can also go over to my events tab, because on the events tab, Facebook itself will give you a reminder. So if you'd like to have both and you don't want to miss, plus you really don't want to miss some of the tonight or any of the upcoming episodes that we have. So Lisa, thank you so much for doing this with us. It was such a pleasure, and I hope you'll come back soon.
Oh, thank you, Shari. I would love to come back. This was so much fun.
Yeah, we already have something in mind that I'm going to announce soon, but we're putting it together, and it's going to be a big special event that we're going to do very soon.
Excellent. Thank you, and thanks for everybody who tuned in. I can't wait to read your comments.
Oh, yes. Christine, you register on the link that Joe just put up. Joe's my husband. Joe's posting as me. So wherever you saw me posting, there, he just pinned it. Okay. Wherever you see me posting, that's Joe taking care of business there for us, because I can't do it all at the same time. All right. So we're going to say goodnight to everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful night. Kiss your babies and hug and love them. And, you know, skin to skin, everybody. Take off your clothes right now and put your baby skin to skin. And I'll go hold my puppy.
Oh, me too.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.